Hey everybody, welcome back to the CNC with Dave show. Tonight, as you can see, I'm not in my usual location. I'm out here in my messy garage, but I needed to be out here to kind of show you what we're going to talk about tonight. We've got a really awesome panel tonight. We've got a couple of guys I think probably be showing up in a little bit, but we'll just go ahead and start off with the introductions of the panel. And then I got a few little shout outs and stuff. So Juan, you want to start us off?
Sure. My name is Juan Lopez. You can find me here on YouTube under G Code 1 Design, and I'm also on Facebook and on Instagram. Thanks for having me, Dave.
No problem, Juan. Good to have you on here. And Mr. Lindsay, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Well, thanks very much, Dave. Thanks for having me. I am Mark Lindsay, and you can find me here on YouTube as well as on Facebook, where I'm pretty active in way too many groups. And no post to Instagram this week, but I'm there as well. Thanks again for having me, Dave. And I will be monitoring the chat for y'all, answering your questions.
Yeah, and I got a feeling we may get a few of them tonight.
One or two. I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay, Mark Graves, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. Mark Graves from Mark's Custom Design. I have a Facebook page, Mark's Custom Design, and YouTube. I'm strictly do signs and airbrush work at the moment. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Good to have you on here again, Mark. Michael, take her away, buddy.
Hey, how's it going? Mike Mertzke. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, MySpace, YouTube, you know, the normal places. I'm usually most active on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Glad you can make it tonight, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
And we've got a new gentleman on the panel tonight. I know it's not going to be his last time. Peter, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, Dave. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Peter Pasquallo. I go under the name of CNC Nuts on YouTube, and you can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.
Okay, very good. Thanks for joining us. I guess I should say today, since it's actually Sunday where you are. So thanks for joining us, Peter.
No worries.
Rich Moeller.
Hi, Dave. Rich Moeller here, San Jose, California. You can usually find me on Facebook under Shade Tree CNC, although I do have a YouTube channel under the same name and Instagram as well.
Okay, thanks for being on here with us, Richard.
Thank you.
Next, I see we've got Russ Meadows that's just snuck in here. You want to introduce yourself, Russ?
Just in under the wire. Yeah, Russ Meadows, Rusty Nails Wood Shop on Facebook page and on Instagram. You can find me those places. Or in my shop, working on a safety orange.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you, you know, since you're already talking, if we could get an update on the
Well, you know, I came home a little late from work. I was going to go take a picture of it so I could prove it. Well, Mark Lindsay doesn't believe it if I don't show a picture.
Well, yeah, it's kind of internet law, you know, no pictures or it didn't happen. So,
I've got the frame done and the gantry sides, and as soon as I square up the frame, make sure that's all right, I'll start working on the gantry itself, I think.
Okay, well, just remember to post some pictures as you go.
I should.
We're anxiously awaiting.
Hey, I'm officially off of you now, Russ, because there was a gentleman posted on Facebook earlier today. He bought his in March and hasn't opened the crates yet.
Yeah,
so
I saw that too.
You got to pass.
So I'm like, wow, he's got Russ beat by a mile.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. He'll probably beat me done, but my God.
Yeah, well, he might. Yeah, you never know.
Wow, but
okay, thanks for being on here, Russ. And lastly, we have Tommy G from Tommy G's Workshop.
Yeah, my name's Tom Gonzalez. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, all under Tommy G Workshop. And you can check out my website, TommyGWorkshop.com.
Okay. Thanks for being with us tonight, Tommy. I just had a couple of things I want to talk about before we get started on tonight's topic. I wanted to give a shout out to a gentleman by the name of Ron Ringel. He sent me an email earlier this week, and I'm going to read part of it here. It says, Dave, I got the plans last October and pretty much had it done by spring. And I guess last October, he's talking about the what everybody calls the Sidewinder wooden plans or whatever. But he says, because of summer projects, I was just getting around to trying it out. So he's asking what kind of accuracy should he expect? And he said that, I'm not going to read it all here, but I'll just hit the highlights. He says, I'm from 9 thousandths to 19 thousandths of an inch too big in both the X and the Y. And he's telling me what he's running, a cable 690 and all this kind of stuff. And he's asking me, you know, if I can give him any advice. So the first thing when I sent the email back, I said, well, are you running Mach 3? And if so, have you calibrated each axis? And then just, I guess it was just yesterday, he sent another email, and he says he figured out the problem. He said, somehow I was leaving a finish allowance in Fusion 360, even though he wasn't using a finishing pass. He said when he eliminated that, he ranges from -1 thousandth to +4 thousandths. So he's within 5 thou on 12 different cuts from 1 to 3 inches. So the reason I'm bringing that up is not just to give a shout out to Ron Ringel on a job well done, but also just to show people that may be watching the show that you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to have a decent CNC. You know, if you take your time and build it right, you know, and I'm not just talking about mine, I'm talking about just in general, you know, you can have yourself a decent CNC. Or if you've got a bunch of money, have you guys seen that Powermatic has jumped into the CNC arena? Y'all see that? Yeah, and you know, I love Powermatic tools. I don't have any. I wished I had a shop full of them because they're, you know, the gold standard. But I was looking at their website today, and it looks like to me they have 2 models out. Looks like they have a 2x2 that's looks like about 5,700 and some change, and then they've got a 2x4 that's about 8,500. So I'm sure they're very good quality machines.
Well, they better be.
Well, yeah, that's why. Yeah, and I know they've got to be. I mean, because, you know, like I said, I would love to have a shop full of Powermatic tools.
You have a 2x2 for 5,700 and change?
Yeah, and that's the, I'm assuming that's the cutting area. I'm not sure. It says, and again, I'm looking on their website, and they don't really say, they don't call it a footprint, but they say that the required area needed. So I don't know whether they mean footprint or if they're allowing for room to walk around it or what. But for that 2x2, it's 24 by 48. So that may be the footprint. I don't know. And then for the bigger one, it was 52 by 96. So not only are they, you know, kind of pricey as far as us kind of guys think, but they also take up a lot of room in your shop. But yeah, I've been seeing those posts on Facebook here. They've been advertising on Facebook a lot, and I decided to check them out today. But so yeah, if you want a really good CNC, I would imagine they are. I do have to kind of chuckle though, because if you go to their website and look, they have something on here that's, and it's on their website. I didn't make this up, but it says CNC for the true craftsman. And I had to kind of laugh when I read that, because I'm thinking true craftsman kind of means to me just the opposite of CNC, but whatever. So I guess maybe CNC has finally become accepted by the
mainstream.
We are not outcasts anymore.
Yeah, the woodworking gods or whatever. They're. But
I always get
Okay.
leery though when a company kind of jumps in later in the game, you know, in something like that. I mean, all their other power tools they've been running for a long time. Then all of a sudden they've got, so at least this first gen, I'd be a little leery about.
yeah, I mean, you know, just looking at them, they look like a really solid machine. Of course, they come with a table, with like a cabinet and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of the money's probably for that too. But and I did notice the 2x2 looked like it had just some kind of a router on it, but the 2x4, the one that's 8,500, it looked like it had some, like a 3 horsepower spindle looked like on it. So, like I said, I'm sure they're very nice machines. I just like I said, I had to chuckle a little bit when I read that CNC for the true craftsman. Okay. All right. Anybody got anything they want to talk about while before we get started here?
I'm working at a school right now in Canada here, and it's for the gifted for arts. And one of the teachers wants to get into CNC, and I'm really talking to him about your stuff. And I just got off of him a 3D printer that they're having problems with. So in the next few weeks, I'm going to be working on that. So if anybody can give me some information, I'll post the model and whatnot and see if we can't help this school out.
Okay,
Cool.
sure. All right. I did one other thing I wanted to talk about is next week, on next week's show, I'm going to have the guy over here on the far right to me, Tommy G. He's going to be the spotlight guest on next week's show, and he's going to be showing off his X-Carve upgrade kit. So I know he's excited about it. I'm excited about it because I've kind of seen a little of the stuff he's done. And so if anybody out there has got an X-Carve and you're looking for, some way to upgrade it to make it where it's a lot better, you'll want to check out next week's show and definitely check out Tommy G. So, okay. I guess without any further ado, we'll start talking about our topic tonight. I posted a kind of a photo rendering of a rotary table on Facebook and just kind of left it out there just to see what kind of suggestions I could get. Most people could figure out what I was up to. But what I've done is I purchased I guess a fairly decent rotary table. It seems like it is. And a 4-jaw chuck. I also purchased a 3-jaw chuck that just came in today too that works with that same rotary table. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is to show people that you can really get into the 4th axis rotating a rotary axis really fairly inexpensive, and it's not really a big deal to do it. I'm going to try to I'll have to tilt this camera down a little bit, and you probably won't be able to see my head, but heck, you won't be missing nothing there. So tilt this down. And Mark, have we got any questions over in the chat yet, or they just getting wound up?
Yeah, make sure you lock your camera on when you get it going.
Yeah, they're still discussing the price of that Powermatic. I mean, so far the most expensive we've seen over here in the comments is around $3,800, and that was buying the GarageWorks 4x4.
Yeah, that Powermatic small unit says whatever its price, you have to provide a router for it.
Yeah,
it doesn't come with a router.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna try to stand out of the way here. I want to show you guys this thing, and if anybody has been following me on YouTube or anything, you may have seen this before. This is a kind of a prototype. It's made out of just some 1/2-inch MDF that I had laying around, and I did, I think, a couple of videos. I think I did one about, I don't know, probably a year or so ago, But the very first one I did was actually, it's one of the first videos I did when I started doing YouTube videos, I think. But that's probably about 4 years, a little over 4 years ago. But this is nothing more. You can see it's really simple. There's not much to it. I've got just a little knob here where you can slide this. It's really just made, you can see how I've got like a little T-bolt right here. Nothing fancy. Slide this back and forth. This live center is actually from a Central Machinery, one of those little 7x10 mini lathes that I bought, I don't know, probably 10 years ago from Harbor Freight. So that's where this live center came from. And all I did was take, of course, this is a Morse taper number 2. So I just mic'd it here, and it's about, I don't know, 690, I think, something like that up here. And then as it slopes down, it was, I forget, 630 or something like that. So I just took 2 pieces and, put like a 690 hole here and a 630 or whatever there, and just get it where, as long as you make those, of course, I cut these on the CNC. So you get them concentric, and you just kind of push them in there, and it just kind of stays, it kind of gets stuck in there. You can see how really crude and this is. This is one of the old stepper motors. Like, this is what I have on my old Sidewinder out in my shop. These are the Xylotex kit, but these are the 269 ounce that Jeff used to sell 3 years ago or something like that. And all I did was I just milled a little pocket inside here. And again, this is just 1/2 inch MDF. Bolted the motor directly to it. I took a coupling. I think this one is a steel coupling. And you can see how the crude chuck, if you want to call it that, what I made is just a piece of red oak. And I just put some screws on here to have a little point to give the block of wood something to stick to. So you can just kind of center it up here, take this and kind of tap it on the back to, to get it stuck in there. And that actually didn't work too bad. But when I started thinking about Rotary Axis, when I built this, I kept saying, yeah, one of these days I'm going to, this was like a prototype. I'm going to really get serious and try to build something a little better. But I decided I wanted to try to build something else that everybody could build in their shop without, without having to go to a fabricator and get something out of steel or something like that. But I guess you guys can see this in the shot okay. This is basically a lot like that. I used 3/4. This is the maple pure bond plywood like I used for the kits to make this stuff. And it's basically the same kind of deal. It's got the same slot. I guess I need to put that live center back in. I only have one of these, so I've been swapping back and forth. So, I just wanted something that I could line up, and I guess you can see that okay if I stay out of the way. This is a Grizzly. Let me get my notes here. This is a Grizzly H5685, and I'll put the links on my website and probably in the video description here of a rotary table. And all I did is, I don't know if you can see that dial. Let me just see if I can grab this camera. Make y'all dizzy for a minute.
Yep, that'll do it.
Can you see a little better there?
Oh, yeah.
You see the little dial right here? And then it just had this stem coming up, and of course it just had a hand crank on it. So I just took the set screw off the hand crank, measured what that stem was, and it was right at 10 millimeter. So I happen to have an old dumpster CNC coupling that had a 1/4 inch bore on 1/2, and it had actually was made for a 3/8 Acme screw that I used to use years ago. And so all I did was take that 1/2 and kind of drill it out. I think I drilled it out to like 406, and then I could get it over that shaft and clamp it good enough to hold it. And one thing I do wish I had another one of those little knobs right here, but I haven't got one yet. But so what I was doing in SolidWorks, what you guys saw on Facebook, is I was basically taking this and kind of reverse engineering it just to mock it up so that when I designed this, I could get everything, you know, in line and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, this is just a real simple deal. Like I said, I got this is like I said, a Grizzly 5685 rotary table. That 4-jaw chuck is a T10053 from Grizzly. And also, and you guys let me know if I turn around and then you can't hear me.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
We do have a couple people asking if you could tilt your camera down just a little bit. All of the people down here in the distinguished panel are covering up half of your axis there.
Is that good?
Much better. Much better.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, if I'm turning my head and you can't hear me or something, just stop me and holler at me.
Now your audio is perfect.
Okay. Here's the, like I said, I ordered this. This just came in today. This is the 3-jaw chuck. And I think this one, if anybody, I know people are probably going to want prices on this. I got all this stuff off of Amazon. The rotary table was $153.94 before tax. The 4-jaw chuck was $99.95 before tax. And the 3-jaw chuck was $111.95 before tax. So, but yeah, and of course they come, both the 4-jaw and the 3-jaw comes with another set. Like on this one, you've got the I guess the inside ones here, and you got another set of jaws here for the outside that you can change out. And for anybody that hasn't ever dealt with a lathe and chucks, whether it be a metal lathe or wood lathe or whatever, these things, and I don't know if I can get this close enough where you can see it. Maybe I can. But on this one, there's a 3-jaw chuck. If I can hold it real still, see where it says 1 right there? I think, which one is that? 2, then 3. Anyway, they number them with a stamp. Same thing on the 4-jaw. And then these little things will be number 2. So when you go, like if you go to swap these out, don't put a number 3 and a number 2 because they're made to go in that certain spot. So that's why they put a stamp on them. And I think let's see, I don't know whether you can see that or not. Right, hold on a second. Can y'all see that? There's a number 2 stamp right down here. I don't know if you can make it out.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But anyway, but they're stamped. So like I said, if you haven't dealt with chucks and stuff like that, you want to make sure when you're changing out your jaws, you put the right number where it's supposed to go. And everything will be hunky-dory. What kind of questions we got coming, Mark?
Well, so far we have 3. Paul Camp would like to know what is the gear reduction on that rotary table?
I don't know. I'd have to go to the Grizzly site and look it up. I know that when I took this motor, and actually what I did is, like I said, this was on this other little crummy one here. This was the 269-ounce motor, and it's 1/8 steps. So I know that the steps per unit to make it work right on direct drive had to be 4.44444, just a whole bunch of 4s. And then, of course, this one is 1/16 step. So when I tried putting this motor onto this little deal here, then the steps per unit was 8.888888. Well, then when I connected it to this, I thought, well, now I've got to figure out all kinds of stuff because you got a whole bunch of stuff going on in here, this gear reduction and all. But I figured out that if you use 320 steps per unit, that works. And I actually, there is where this little knob is under here, or I don't know what you call it. I guess it's Juan, help me out. You're a machinist. You probably know this stuff. But where this little gauge is on this knob, there is a mark that, you know, 0, and then every time you spin it around, I think it goes from 1 to 10. And I think every time you spin it around, it goes, I don't know, 1 degree, maybe 2 degrees. It looked like it was about 2 degrees to me. But anyway, that's too hard to see now that I've got this other contraption built on top of it. So I just took a scribe and scribed me a line here. And then that way I can get one lined up, and then I can, you know, when I was trying to figure out a number, I just would put in a number, tell it to go 90, and I would look, and, you know, and if it went too much, I go, well, that number's too big. And I just kind of played around with it until I got it close. But after I did it and I got 320, I tried all different kinds of moves, and it seemed to hit dead on that mark. So I think that's the right number. I can't tell you the math or anything, because I would have to look this up on the Grizzly website, I guess, and get the gear reduction and then do all that math and stuff to figure it out.
Yeah, even the Grizzly website doesn't even have the information. I'm on it right now. I was looking it up, and it doesn't have the gear reduction or anything on there.
Yeah.
The Amazon site on that, someone put in the answers, but they even said presumably they think it's a 36-to-1.
Okay. Yeah, that may be, I don't know. But anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to have this show is not just to show that you can make something like this, or if you really don't want to spend the money for those chucks, you could rig something up like this, because I've used this before and it works okay. But what I wanted to show you is if you're using not necessarily one of my machines, but if you're using the Xylotex kit, you know, the Xylotex kit that I've always recommended is a 4-axis kit. You know, it's got X, Y, Z, and A. And of course, I run 2 motors to push the Y back and forth. So I just slave the Y and the A together. And that's how I've always run my machines. I've been running them like that for years. Well, and again, the first video I did on this was over 4 years ago. But what you know, when you think about it, to do the Rotary Axis, like with VCarve Pro and Aspire and stuff like that, once you get this thing centered over the center line of this, you're not moving that axis anymore. So you don't really need to have it hooked up. So what I've done is, you know, I can be running this machine, maybe cutting parts or whatever, and then when I get ready to run my Rotary Axis, I can, first I put this on the table and clamp it down. You probably can't see it from that shot, but I actually have taken this 1/4-inch end mill and just dropped it down, and I don't know, probably about a 30-second or so. It just came down and jogged it over this way, so I've got a nice straight L on my table here. So I just line the edge of this plywood here up, and then use a couple of clamps to clamp it down, and then I can jog my Y-axis and make sure that I got it dead in line with the center line of this Rotary Axis. And then once I have that done, I don't need the Y-axis anymore. So now I can, without having to, well, I mean, I do have a separate motor on here. I do have this is actually one I've stolen. It's supposed to go on this one over here. But, you know, you don't have to have a whole nother driver or anything like that. You can now shut down the controller. And if you guys that have a Xylotex kit, you will recognize this. Let me turn it off first so I don't fry something. But I don't know if you can see this, but this this plug I've got right here, can you see that that's a blue right there? Anybody?
Can't see it, but we'll take your word for it.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I guess I'm too far away, but this is the blue one. So this is what Xylotex calls the A axis anyway. And again, I would normally have it connected back here to my other stepper motor slaved with the Y, and it would be moving the Y back and forth. So what I can do is, of course, with the thing powered off, I can just unplug that blue one and bring it up here. And then I can turn the controller back on. And then all I do is in Mach 3, I think we've talked about this before on the show, is having different machine profiles. So then I would just close out Mach 3, open it back up. Only now I would select the profile that I've created for Rotary Axis. And the difference on it is I have, if you go to the config tab up there and come down to general config, over on the left hand side you'll see A, B, and C, and then there's little check boxes to check if it's angular. Well, normally when I'm running this as just a regular CNC router, I have that unchecked because I want that A to run linear. But so when I create the new profile for the Rotary Axis, I check that to say, okay, now I want my A axis to be linear. I mean, excuse me, angular. So now it's gonna rotate. That's how it figures the steps. And that's really just how easy it is. I mean, it's nothing to create another profile. The only other thing I have to do is go in and on the new profile, I have to make sure that I uncheck the A where it's not slaved with the Y. And then I have to go to the motor tuning and put in the correct steps per unit, which like I said, I figured it was 320 here, whatever the acceleration and all that is. So you do have those numbers to change, but other than that, it's really easy to set up another machine profile. So, any questions yet?
Oh yeah, several.
Okay, let's have it.
Well, Thomas James wants to know, have you noticed any backlash on that rotary cable?
No, I saw some comments about that you might have backlash, but there's a little screw on this thing to adjust that or to try to take some of it out. But when I sit there and hold my hand on the chuck and turn that knob, I don't feel any slop at all. Maybe it's because it's still brand new. I don't know. Maybe as I go on. But I know I saw a lot of people were talking about those cheap ones. They go, oh, you can't use them for that. And I'm like, it probably weren't good enough for what I want. So, and like I said, I have not noticed any backlash as far as it doing that.
Okay. And let's see, Paul Camp also wants to know, did either of those chucks come with a set of soft jaws?
No.
No, okay.
They do not. But to me, if you're, and I'll show you, here's a couple of, little sample pieces I was doing. And like I said, this is all new to me. I haven't really done any of this stuff. So this is just using the rounding tool path. And just to make sure that I kept everything out of the way, this piece I think is like 14 inches long, but I just made the thing 10 inches. So, the soft jaws, you're not really going to need them if you're putting this and you're going to cut that off anyway. So I don't really care. And I don't really care if it's marred that up a little bit, because that would be junk anyway. And one thing also, I noticed somebody posted on Facebook, I posted a picture of this, and they go, well, it looks like he's going to hit the stepper motor here. But I guess they didn't realize that this isn't, once I get this centered up over that's not moving. That's not going anywhere. You've only got your X, your Z, and of course your A.
Okay. Michael Chipser wants to know, can he use it to make pins?
I don't know why you'd want to, because you can make a pin in about 10 minutes, I think, with a lathe, can't you? The guys that make them all the time,
Yeah.
I think.
Take about 5-10 minutes.
Hey, every once in a while, you got to overcomplicate things.
I think he was trying to yank somebody's leg there.
Yeah, and as I've said many times, CNC isn't always the answer to everything.
Of course, if you wanted to make a pin that had like some cool design that you can't do on a lathe, you could probably do it on there.
There you go.
Like
Yeah,
Statue of Liberty.
if you had the pin modeled up and you wanted to
Like a rope effect.
carve somebody's name or something real fine in it, yeah, you could do that, I suppose. But I wouldn't recommend this, you know, to try to make a living making pins. If I could afford to get it.
Why would you? What would be the difference in why you would choose the 3-jaw or the 4-jaw?
Well, I guess it would just depend on if you already had something that was round. It's easier to center up with the 3-jaw. The 3-jaw, actually, I got to tell you, this is a little bit of a pain in the butt, and that's why I turned around and I bought the 3-jaw the other day. And like I said, it came this morning. The 3-jaw, and I have a chuck very similar to this on that little mini lathe there. But you see, you got your key, and you've got one spot here. So you see, let me hold this still. Let's see if you guys can see. As you turn it, all 3 of them move. So it's a whole lot easier to get something centered up with this. Whereas the 4-jaw chuck, let me fire this up here real quick. So you can see it's got a key that came with it as well, but you only move one of those at a time. There's one on each one of them. So it's a lot more difficult to get something centered up with that. And by the way, Peter, it's cool now because I get to use the A keys on this.
Oh, that's good.
I haven't had an opportunity to use those, but they do work. But yeah, it does take a little bit of, I'll show you these. This is like the very first sample I run. And I can tell that I was eyeballing it, which I should have known better because I can't see squat anyway. But apparently I didn't have it centered up good because it did a pretty nice round over here. But if you can see that right there, I got a big flat spot right there. And of course, part of the problem was I think these are just pieces of 2x4 that I tried to cut as close to 1.5 inches square as I could. But I was also telling it to make this final diameter here 1.4. So it's only taking 50 thousandths off per side. So if you get it off a little bit, it's easy to get a flat spot. I got better as I went along. This one actually turned out pretty good. I don't know if you can see right there. There's a little bit of color difference, and that's because it didn't skin any of that off. So you do have to take your time, especially using the 4-jaw chuck, to get the thing centered up right. But I think the key, at least my way of thinking, would be to make your starting blank a good bit bigger than what you're going to cut, and then you'd be okay.
Yeah, they do make self-centering 4-jaw chucks. I don't know if Grizzly does or not, but I think right at the beginning, the 3-jaw chucks is a lot easier for round stock. 4-jaw chucks are easier for square stock.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing that's why the 4-jaw chuck was only $100, is because you got a whole lot more stuff going on there when you're trying to turn and move all those at once. So I imagine a 4-jaw chuck with one turn, like you're talking about, would be a good bit more expensive than this one.
Grizzly might have one. I think I've seen one quite a while back, but it was like almost $400.
Yeah. Was it a small one that would fit? Because these chucks, now this is a 4-inch rotary table, but the chucks are like 3 1/4-inch diameter, and they just bolt on there.
Yeah. So the self-centering one, it was around $300 or $400. I believe it was a 4-inch.
Okay.
The whole footprint, but I know the chuck itself was 4-inch.
Okay. Any other questions, Mark?
Oh boy. Okay, let's see. Jeff Morgan wants to know, how long did it take to cut your 1.5 by 1.5 round?
That really only took. It didn't take long, about 10 minutes maybe. And
Okay.
and again, keep in mind that I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't have everything moving just super fast, because think about it. When you're down here and this thing's moving, I gotta make sure that I know that it's not going to go over here and crash into that and screw something up. So I didn't want to tear anything up. So I had this. I will talk about one thing though. I noticed. I was watching when I got ready to do this with VCar Pro. Like I said, I've done very limited. I think the video that I did 4 years ago, I started out with something round, and I think I engraved Sidewinder CNC on it 3 places. Did like wrap text. So now I'm starting out, back at square one, just learning how to do a rounding path, then do the spiral and the flutes and all that different stuff. But so I did, before I started doing this, I watched a lot of YouTube videos, which I do anyway. But I started, and there was one guy who had a Cam Master, and in the video he's showing what the code looks like. And when I noticed the code, I thought, well, that looks a good bit different than what the Mach 3 uses. And by the way, if you go to, I guess I should bring this up too. If you go to VCar Pro or Aspire, you go to the post processors. You can't, obviously if you're running this machine like me, and I'm used to using a post processor to run just regular router, you have to use a different post processor to do this wrapping. I'll look and see what it is here. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I will say that Aspire, Victric has done a couple of very excellent tutorials on modeling for a rotary axis, as well as Peter Pasquello over here, Mr. CNC Nuts. He's done a couple of excellent tutorials on modeling for the rotary axis.
Yeah. So now the post processor that I use it's called Mach 2/3 wrap 2 ATC inch, and I'm sorry, wrap Y2A, I should say. Because there's 2 different ones. See, what I'm doing is I'm wrapping around the Y-axis. That's the axis I'm not using now. So that's what I'm using to wrap around. If you were wanting to take this thing on some machines like the Cam Master, they have the lathe attachment or whatever, rotary attachment, whatever they call it, over on the side running parallel. So they're actually wrapping the X-axis. So you've got to make sure you select the right post processor for however you've got this oriented on your machine. In my case, because I use 2-stepper motors to move the Y, and I want to steal one of the A-axis from there. That's why I'm going to put it this way. But getting back to what I was talking about, the speed, I did notice that when I use that post processor, it puts a speed, like for example, I was using 80 inches a minute, okay, for my X and my Z. But the way the post processor works in VCarve Pro for the Mach 3 wrapping on the Y, it automatically, it just puts that speed. It'll put F80, but then it may come down to where it's moving this A. Well, it's moving it at 80. Well, to move this at 80, that's slow. It's really slow. So I think the only way I would be able to do it, because I looked around a little bit trying to figure out how to get a different speed for this one. And like I said, Mach 3 VCarve Pro just generates that one F thing. So I think what I would have to do is go in and edit the code, and for every time that it's moving just this, I would have to put F500 or whatever, and I could get it to run a lot faster. Because a lot of the time when I was doing this rounding, the X goes down. Well, then it's waiting on this thing to turn a little bit. And like I said, it seems like it's just crawling because it's running 80 inches a minute, but that's slow for something that has this gearing here. So, but that's something I'll work on and try to figure out how to get it faster.
Okay. Oh yeah, Jeff Robinson wants to know, do you think it could engrave glassware or stemware?
I mean, I suppose you could if you have the right kind of bit to do glass, and it might be a little tricky clamping it in there. I don't know. I thought anything's possible. I think if you put your mind to it, figure out how to do it.
Yeah, if you've got a dollar store near you, you could grab a bunch of dollar store cheapies and give it a shot.
Yeah.
Okay, Bart Bixel wants to know, okay, so who makes that pendant?
I don't really remember who makes it.
I knew you got it on Amazon, but maybe you could put a link to it in the description or something.
Peter on the panel here, CNC Nuts, he did an excellent video showing us guys that doesn't know how to program this thing. He got it all programmed for us. And thanks again, Peter. I finally get to thank you kind of in person now. So thanks for that. I got mine on Amazon.com. It's just a Mach 3 CNC manual remote controller. It was, help me guys, how much was this thing? $40?
About $30.
$40, I think.
Yeah. Actually, I bought two of them. I've got another one out on my old Sidewinder out there in the shop. It takes a while to get used to using them, but there are some features that I really like. I really love how I can be away from the computer and use that J plus and J minus to slow it way down so that I can just make it crawl. I love that feature. Yeah, $40. Go to Amazon.com. You can probably find it.
Yeah, I know when I went to go get it, they were all sold out. So if you find it available, probably grab it up quick because they get sold out a lot. I ended up having to go with this one.
I think eBay carries them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just brought mine off eBay.
Doesn't that one have a dial on it, Tommy?
Yeah, it's got the dial on it for the steps, and you can adjust a bunch of different things and put macros on it and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's $27.75 on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah, these are, like I said, these are about, well, I think they were $40 or so. And they're obviously not the best, but I definitely think they're worth $40 for sure.
I just use an Xbox 360 controller.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Well, Jeff Morgan, he wants to know, did you carve the 4 spindles that were on the Facebook page? I think he's referring to the drawings I posted, but
No,
I don't know.
I know what he's talking about. He's talking
Okay.
somebody, an old high school buddy of mine had commented about this, and I guess he really didn't know what it would do.
Okay.
So I went to Google and put in spiral spindles and grabbed the picture and put it in there just so I could show that guy this is what the kind of stuff that will do. You know, it's different than just a regular lathe. It turns both ways and does all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
but yeah, that was just a picture I got from Google Images and was just trying to show that friend of mine what these things can do. I did not do those. Hopefully I can make
Okay.
something like that one day.
Yeah. Okay, and this is the last question I have right now from Becca Miller. She says, "Is Dave going to sell plans?"
Becca, I'm so glad you asked that. It just so happens that I know a guy that knows CAD. We got him right here. They'll probably be on the CNC Sidewinder website sometime tomorrow. I will say, and let me just talk about how I made this. There are obviously some parts that I made using the CNC. Let's see, I've got this one clamped down, so I'll pick this one up because it's kind of the same. But you can see how I made a through slot, and then I made another slot that's bigger to accommodate that. Actually, I think that's one of those Rockland bolts or whatever for the T-track. And I forget what I made that, maybe an eighth, maybe 3/16 deep, something like that. I think I made it 3/16 deep in the plans. So I used the CNC to make that. I called that the base. Then I called this the, let me just undo this here. This is the slide, and you can see it's all milled here so that it fits, where it slides nice on there without a whole lot of slop. You can put the hole there for the T-bolt. These two pieces I wanted to make on the CNC to make sure that I got these holes concentric so that when I set them on top of this slide and just glued them on there, that they would be, I can hold that right, they would be concentric to get the live center to set parallel. So that was another CNC part. This part here, it's got the motor mount, and I don't think you can see it from the shop, but it's got the top part cut out so that you can get to the set screws and the coupling, much like on these things here. Now I did run that on the CNC because I want to get a good fit for that whole pattern and all that. But this, you've got this spindle here where you attach the or shaft, whatever you want to call it, where you attach it. It's basically at a 30-degree angle. So that means I've got 90 and 30 is 120. So to make this miter, I had to make these 60 degrees. So I cut this part on the CNC and actually just cut that 60-degree angle using my table saw and a push stick, because that's a small piece. Don't try to feed it through there with your hand. This piece, I think I just cut this piece on the table saw, then cut the 60-degree matching miter for here. And you can, mine, I actually made it a little short. I wish I'd have made it longer where it set all the way to the table. But, that's not really critical. The critical part's getting a good miter here. But this, I did not use the CNC at all for. I've gotten just a little block. I don't even have this glued in. It's just kind of shoved in here to kind of stabilize it a little bit. And another little block at the bottom that's glued in. They're not cut on the CNC. This back plate that mounts the rotary table, that I cut on the CNC just so I could get that angle good and precise. And then these two little blocks, if you can see where my hand is right here, this is just 2 pieces of 3/4 plywood that's spacing this up to get a decent amount. If I can find my...
Well, to be honest, you could basically cut it all out on the CNC, right? Because if you don't have a CNC, you really don't have a whole heck of a lot of use for it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I'm going to provide, with the plans, I'll provide DXF files for anybody, you know, because obviously, like you say, you're going to have a CNC or you don't really have a need for one of these. But I did put notes on some of these, letting people know that, hey, I did this part on the CNC, I did this part on the table saw, or this part I made completely, you know, make it last and cut it on table saw, make it to fit, you know, because, you know, and I say this all the time, when I design stuff, you know, I design stuff in SolidWorks, and I design everything as 3/4 inches, you know, for a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood. But it's rarely, and I mean rarely, going to be exactly 3/4 inches. I don't know if I got a set of calipers out here. I think I took them back in the house. So, you know, you might measure this, and it might be like 735 or something. So there's 15 thou right there. So, you know, it's not, you know, it's not going to be a super precise thing. But like I said, if you start off with an oversized blank and you're going to cut your spindle and you get it put in there fairly centered, I think you're going to be able to make some cool stuff with something that's really pretty cheap to make. I made this, let's see, I think I've covered, yeah, I think I've covered all the pieces. I made this, I don't know, just a few hours the other day. And again, part of it, I could cut the parts on that I knew I wasn't going to cut on the CNC. I could cut them on table saw while the CNC was running, so that saved a little bit of time. But I mean, it's really a pretty cheap little deal that I think would fit in nice with people that are building their own little hobby CNCs here. I mentioned the price of this. You know, this is the most expensive part. You actually, you know, another thing too, if you've got this same kind of setup like my CNC, you really wouldn't even have to buy an extra one of these. You could take, you know, if you really want to go the trouble, you could, instead of just unplugging that blue wire and bringing it up here, you could take that whole motor off and mount it on here and then do that, you know, and then put it back when you, that's just a lot of trouble. So, you know, I like to get an extra motor because I think they're, what are they, like $50 or something?
That's $50. I think if you're going Xylotex, it's worth it. $50 to not hassle with changing your motor.
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, I always get an extra one to use for this. These things, I don't know if I talked about this. Like I said, this is a live center that I just kind of got off my mini lathe over there. But you go go to Amazon and just put live center, and you'll get hundreds of these pop up. Some of them are, you know, as cheap as $15. I think, you know, I saw a lot of them for around $20, $25. You know, of course, you can get some much nicer ones, but this, and you don't have to make this a more, you know, you don't have to use a number 2 taper if you don't want. You just have to adjust your hole here if you've got a smaller one or something. But this is what I had, so I just made the holes to work with that. So not a whole lot of money really to make this. And if you really didn't want to spend the money for this, like I said, you could always use the direct drive method. Okay. You know, if you do come up with a better little deal than this, because it worked okay, but you could, if you tried to take a very big cut, you know, it's not a whole lot holding. I had like 3 screws sticking out, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So it might slip on you if you're trying to take a big cut, but yeah, Becca, if I'll have the plans on the website probably tomorrow. Like I said, the DXS will come with it. And what I may do, if I get time to get it done, I may, I'm out here in my garage and there's big bug coming in here about big enough to carry me off. What I may do is go back to these plans. Like I said, I made this out of 1/2" MDF. I may just go back and redo this in the same stuff, 3/4 birch plywood or maple plywood or whatever, and throw them in as well. So when somebody gets the plans, they'll get a set of these if they want to build one like this, or they could build one like this if they want. And like I said, I'll put DXF files in there too, because obviously you're going to have a CNC or you're not going to need one of these things. So anything else, Mark?
Yes, sir. Butch Burnitis wants to know, what's the max diameter you can cut on yours?
Oh, yeah, that's what I started to show a while ago. And again, you could, depending on your CNC, I kind of designed this around this, knowing what I can get. But on this one here, I've got, can't see nothing without my, I think it's 3.5.
Oh, your chuck.
Yeah, it's right at 3.5. And again, I use 2 pieces of plywood, space this up. If you had more Z and wanted to make it higher, all you would have to do is adjust this, just add whatever you're adding to these pieces here, and you can make it taller. Or if you didn't want it as tall, you could maybe only put 1 piece under there or something. So you can, the plans will kind of give you the concept how to build one, and then you can kind of customize it, I guess, to your own machine. Now, I mean, you guys notice too, this is a monster router on this one. This is that 7518 that takes up, a lot of room and stuff. Another thing you guys could do is, if you wanted to, you could check and see how much room this thing sticks out. And if you want to do really big stuff, you could probably figure out something to mount to the front of your machine and just kind of bring it down here. I thought about that, but I don't really see myself doing anything really big like that. And the other thing too I want to talk about is on all my, well, I can't get that out now. If I was to take this router mount off, anybody that's bought my kits know that I've got, this is bolted on with 4 bolts, but there's actually 8 holes there. And when I designed this, that was the intent, was to make it where you could adjust that mount up and down a little bit on the set of holes to get you a little bit more Z clearance, whether you're using it for this or you just put something big that you're wanting to engrave or whatever. So in this particular mount, for this big one, I've got it mounted in the top holes, but all this is symmetrical. I could actually take this, turn it around, and then I would be able to raise, just stick the router back in the other way. And I would be able to raise it back up and probably gain a couple of inches there. And the same thing on my, find one here. Yeah, the same thing on the GarageWorks CNCs. The 36 by 24 is the ones I've got left over there in stock. I think they've got 3 holes, but the 48 by 48, I did the same thing. I put 4 holes. Everything I do, it always has the same bolt pattern. It's 2.5 here by 1 each here, which is, it works with the CNC routerparts.com mounts, works with all the old K2 CNC mounts. Been using that bolt pattern for years. So anyway, and that, like I said, that's just to help you get some extra Z clearance if you need it. Anything else? Let's see how we're doing on time here. We're right at the hour here. Is there any more questions? Or
the only other question I have is off topic, way off topic.
Way off topic?
Yeah. Somebody wants to know about a VFD and spindle control on the Xylotex breakout board.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I can just go ahead and ask it if you want. Basically, has anyone added a VFD and spindle control using the Xylotex breakout board? I haven't, no.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Looks unanimous.
Yep, looks like it is. Okay, well, if that's all the questions we have.
One thought there, Dave, is if you're worried about hitting the lathe chuck or your center, you can always put some stop blocks on the x-axis.
Yeah, good point. Just a simple clamp would solve that, I guess. But I mean, I wasn't too worried about it. You know, I trust VCar Pro to, and again, if you look at like this one, for example, you can see this one is about 14 inches and I'm only doing 10 inches. So I just made sure that I did the origin from the center and I just measured and made sure I had it set here. But, you know, when it moves and you start seeing it head toward that chuck, you kind of, you know, until it stops. But then after I did it the first time, I'm like, okay, well, I'm good. It's right. So
maybe some soft limits too.
Yeah.
Dave, can you set your origin to the far whatever left on our screen, which would be where the chuck is, and then your 0 would be there, and it would never go.
Yeah, you have the same choices when you're doing that to you know, left, right, center, and you can also on your Z0 you can make it where you're doing it on top of the material or at the center of the material. And they actually, the videos that I watched, and I'm gonna post some links to. I thought I already had them posted on here, but I looked a while ago and I didn't. There's a couple of Vectric videos that are really, really good. They're long. One of them is about, I don't know, about 30 minutes, and I think the other one's about 50 minutes. But they're really good videos. So, you know, I wouldn't even try to do a show and try to explain how to program stuff like that, because those videos are just, they're good. You need to watch the video. But they talk about how if you don't get something exactly center, it's better to do your Z in the center of the program. In other words, if you have like I had these 1.5 inch square, I could have told it, check the box that said, I want the Z0 to be here. And then it would show up as 3/4 because actually half an 1.5 inches. But I was doing it on top just because I did. And, you know, like I said, that's what I got. If I got it off a little bit, it didn't trim all the way. But I think that, I mean, you can see that I'm not cutting much off. So I think if I'd have maybe told it to take this 1.5 inches and cut it down to 1.25 inches diameter, it probably would have cleaned all that up because it would have gone down far enough to get part of that then. But
I'll second exactly what Dave was saying. There is one of the Vectric videos for the Rotary Axis with Aspire. It's about 51 minutes long. It's almost a 1 hour video, but it addresses all of that, and it's really an excellent video. But it's broken up into sections, so it's easy to follow. It doesn't seem like you're spending an hour sitting there looking at a YouTube video.
Yeah,
but,
I haven't watched all of that one. I probably watched the first 30 minutes because that's what I needed to watch to get what little bit I needed to learn out of it. Right. But I plan on going back. And then there's another one too that's by Vectric that's about 30 minutes long. And it really, I mean, anybody that uses VCar Pro and Aspire, I mean, you know that stuff is just so user friendly, and all you need is, if you can't figure it out yourself, you watch a tutorial like theirs, you know, stop it and open up your VCar Pro, go do what they're doing. You know, once you do that once, you got it. It's they do a really good job of.
And again, Peter has posted a couple of tutorials over on CNC nuts that are really excellent too. I watched them as well, and I picked up a few tips from him. I don't know if you're a member of the Gatton Router Builders group, you'd notice I posted a couple of photos yesterday when I shared one of Peter's videos. I followed his video tutorial and I drew my first fourth axis drawing from watching his tutorials. I mean, it really works. It really worked good.
Now, did you taking a picture of it and doing it like?
Yes, sir, I did, and I posted a little composite photo of me taking the photo and editing the photo, and then the drawing that I came up with the photo. It really worked a treat. It really works well.
Yeah,
So,
you know, something I thought about is, you know, being in the sheet metal business, you know, that I've done for the last 25, 30 years. I've had to reverse engineer a lot of stuff, and you know, it's always I mean, if you just get somebody that brings you a plate with some holes, you know, that's no big deal. But you get something that's really got a weird shape or whatever, it's always a pain in the butt to try to reverse engineer stuff like that. And I always used to take graph paper that had the spacing where they're 1/4 inch apart, and now, of course, this only worked if you had something good and flat. But you know, you make a little L shape, but a corner or an edge up to that, and then just trace that part, and then you could kind of. Of course, it takes a long time to do it, but you save a lot of time because you get it so close the first try. And I would, you know, go on the graph paper and mark the XY coordinates, you know, where they intersected on that graph paper. And then I could go to SolidWorks and just start plugging in points for those XY coordinates, and then take the spline feature and connect them. And as you go to connect to, it automatically makes the right bend and stuff. And you got something that's a really weird shape. That's a really quick way of getting it pretty darn close on the first try. And then once you get it, then you can kind of tweak it, move a few points or whatever. If you know, because you can print it out 1-to-1, lay your part on there, and then you can see whether you're off or not. But another thing I was thinking about too is, rather than a photo, is if you had something rigged up where you could, like, again, using graph paper, and had some kind of light where you could adjust it and get just the right shadow. I don't know if that would work or not. But anyway, just throwing that out there. Any other questions, Mark?
We've got a couple questions over in the GarageWorks CNC Facebook group. Tammy Trout was unable to comment on the video, she said, so she posted it in there.
Okay.
Asking if you'll have a video you'll be posting up on the fourth axis.
I can. I kind of like to get halfway good at it before I shoot a video. But yeah, I can shoot a video. Of course, it's already made. I can shoot a little video and kind of talk about the parts and stuff like that. But really, all the information will be in the drawings. I'll have stuff on the website. I'll have links to the Grizzly parts and all that. You know, and like I said, when I got ready to do this, I'm hooked on Amazon. I really need an intervention sometimes. In fact, if you could see that this laptop, I've got it sitting on a box that's like, this box is huge. And what came in this box was a new mailbox, because I get so much stuff from Amazon. I've got the biggest honking mailbox they make and put it out there so the mail guy can get all my Amazon stuff put in there.
Okay, yeah, when you order a bigger mailbox from Amazon to handle the boxes you're ordering from Amazon, it's time somebody steps in.
Gonna have to make
I need an intervention, because I look at my order sometime and I go, okay, that's coming tomorrow, that's coming the day after tomorrow, that's coming the day after that. It's bad. I got it bad, but I love them, man. You can, like this 3-jaw chuck. I guess I didn't see it the first time, or I'd have bought it when I bought these two. But I saw that 3-jaw chuck and it says, well, it fits the, you know, it's made for this same rotary table. I go, oh, I got to have that. Well, I ordered it Thursday. It come today. So my mailman's probably going, damn, that guy.
I don't think there's any problem with that, Dave. I don't think that's an issue at all.
Oh, okay. So I'm not alone then.
No.
We can be in the Amazon Anonymous Club.
Amazon loses money on shipping up with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're prime like I am. Woo, man. And they got you though, because you go to order stuff and you're like, well, you're not quite to that limit. If you get this, you can get it. So it's like, okay, what else do I need? Router bits. Yeah, I always need router bits, or whatever. I always get something. But anyway, I went on Amazon, looked, and this was the first rotary table that I saw that was what I thought fairly reasonable. There's probably some better, and there may be some even less expensive on there. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to break your heart, Dave, but on the Grizzly website, it's $134.95.
Okay, well, Amazon got me on that one, I guess, because I paid $153.94 for that. But hey, I got it in 2 days. So, but anyway, if you found a different one, you wouldn't necessarily have to make it like this. I just, I figure I'll make one using what I bought, make the plans for that, and if other people want to, get a different one or whatever, it's not hard. I did really like it that the angle of the little hand crank come up like this, but if I had turned, maybe we can turn this the other way, but I don't know. I want to put it on that plate part to get a good solid mount. So, but it works pretty good.
Could we not rotate the bolt pattern by whatever 30 or 60 degrees? I forget what you said, and then the motor would be 90, and just machine a pocket in that back plate with the bolt pattern, and then that rotary table would sit in there.
Yeah, I could have, but again, as I'm drawing this up, thinking about people wanting plans for it, I'm trying to keep it simple where they just put these two pieces flat, set that plate right on top of it.
Okay.
And it's really not that big a deal. If you got a decent table saw or miter saw, you can cut that angle there and get it right.
I'm just so used to CNCing now, Dave. I don't know what any other tool is.
Yeah. I still use those other things occasionally.
Especially
anything else?
Anything else, y'all? I've got nothing.
No, it's just I got to watch the whole thing from the beginning tomorrow because I was so late.
Yeah, I didn't even know you snuck in here for a while. How long you been here?
Not too long. I got here about 45 minutes ago.
Okay. Yeah, well, do like I do. See, I missed the end of your show because I leave yours early to come do this. So I get up in the morning, get a cup of coffee, and watch the last whatever of your show.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to end up having to do in the morning. Trust me, because this is very. I'm thinking along the line of what you were talking about before, though, is with the 24 by 36. I am going to measure if I bring the gantry all the way to the front, because that might give me a little bit more depth on the 24 by 36 to set it up off the front. See how that.
Yeah. See, I actually thought about making it where I had another piece of plywood. Of course, I was actually thinking about making this different. Instead of having it straddle this like this one does, I would cut some angled pieces and make kind of like a dovetail thing, and then have a piece of plywood here coming up that would be able to clamp to the front of your machine. But like I said, I just decided to keep it simple and do it this way. And again, I don't know if I mentioned it. I actually, in fact, I'm sure I didn't mention it. But this base piece, I've got it 36 inches long. Obviously, you could adjust that to make it longer, shorter, whatever.
No, it's very, very, very interesting. I'm very interested in seeing how this and I like the idea of what you said, but just buy the extra motor. Then all you have to do is just unplug one and plug into the other. You don't have to take the whole motor off. For $50,
you just turn your controller off, unplug that, plug from back there, plug it up here, shut Mach 3 down, start it back up and load up your machine profile for a Rotary Axis,
Yeah.
you know, all your settings are there. You're good to go. So it's really easy to do.
I'm impressed. I thought you were smart. I just figured out tonight you're a lot smarter than I thought you were.
Yeah, well, I'm not as dumb as I look sometimes. You know.
Tammy had another question asking if there was going to be any more build videos for your CNC build videos.
Yes. And, you know, I apologize. I think, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I didn't have a show last week, but 2 weeks ago, I apologize. Here's what happens, folks. When you put a flat surface around Dave, there's the build, and you see all that tools and glue and crap. So it's mostly done. I don't lack a whole lot. But one reason why I haven't been out here working on it and shooting videos is because most of the time when I'm out here in the garage, this thing is running. And, you know, obviously with another machine running, I can't shoot video and talk about what I'm doing. So I know, and I know there's some people who are probably a little put out with me because I haven't hurried up and got that thing done. But I've just been so busy with the kits, which I'm not complaining. That's a good thing. I've got lots of kits to cut that I just haven't had time to finish it. And the other thing is too, you know, I've got the CNC and in my shop back there, my old Sidewinder. I've got this one. So if I really needed this one, it would have already been running. But, you know, I just need to finish up the build videos. I've seen so many people, you know, already posting stuff on Facebook, pictures of the machine, pictures of the stuff they're making. You know, that's another reason why I haven't really gotten in a hurry to get out here and get this thing done, is because to me, it looks like the plans are, you know, good enough that people know how to put it together without me making a video. But
you got a couple people sending me messages, but they're waiting on you.
Oh, they're waiting on me? Okay. Well, yeah. And again, I've seen people say, well, I know how to build the machine, but I don't know how to do the electronics. Well, if you want, you could go back to the other video series of the old shoestring budget CNC or Sidewinder, whatever they call it. It's all basically the same. You know, in fact, there's a lot of things that are pretty much identical. You know, this is just a much simpler design as far as the gantry, because, you know, by me not providing the long gantry pieces, but they're nothing but a rectangle, anybody can make it whatever size they want. And I've noticed a lot of people are, you know, they're not making the table 48 by 48 like I did in the plans. They're making it wider and maybe not as deep, or, you know, whatever fits their shop, which, you know, that was the whole purpose of doing this design that way, where I'm cutting the kit parts, the ones that need to be CNC cut. The other ones, they can make longer, wider, you know, building the table, they can make it wider, narrower, deeper, whatever. So it really makes it where, yeah, they're building one of my designs, but they're making it to fit them.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, we're caught up.
Okay, well, I guess it's a good time to say goodnight then. I hope y'all aren't making fun of my high-tech vacuum hose arrangement there. You can see I've got like some shelf brackets.
Top of the line.
Yeah. So I was trying to keep this where that wasn't showing.
That masking tape roll hose holder is what makes it for me.
No, actually, that's not a masking tape holder. That's a wooden ring. You know how I have a wooden ring on a dust shoe?
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's yeah, one of these.
It looked like a roll of masking tape from this angle.
Yeah, it's an extra one of those that I had, and I think when I cut it, it had like a void all the way through it or something. So I threw it in a scrap pile, and then when I got ready to run that hose, I thought, oh, that'll work fine. I'll use that. So yeah.
You're as bad as I am.
Who said that?
I did, because I'll throw some stuff in a scrap pile that I'm going to throw away, and about 2 weeks later, I'll go back. Man, I need a piece about this big. Oh, crap, it's in the throwaway pile. And I'll go pull it out.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I wish you could see my, well, I'm glad you can't see my backyard, actually, because I have a fire pit back there, and I burn all my wood scraps, you know, from my shop, from the skeletons, from the kits and stuff like that. Well, right now until October 1st, and they may not even change it after October 1st, we're in a burn ban where you can't burn anything. And I have got like 50 or 60 skeletons piled up back there that I need to burn up, not to mention just the normal other wood scraps that I accumulate. But I don't know about you guys, but ever since I've had a CNC, like if I have a piece of, I probably got one laying around here somewhere. I have a piece of plywood, and it's like this big, but it's good plywood. You know, it's like the birch or whatever. When you have a CNC, you go, man, I could get some knobs out of that, or some gears, or I don't throw that stuff away. I got it everywhere. I got crap everywhere. But you know, when you have a CNC, you think differently, I think, than when you don't have one. But,
I take them for test cuts too.
I think that's wrong, because I didn't even have a CNC until the last, 3 or 4 months ago. And I had the scroll saw, and I was thinking about, I could scroll across a really small this.
That's what I mean. If you got a piece of equipment where you can make small stuff, it's like, yeah, that might be a piece of scrap to somebody else, but I could get 5 of them things out, you know,
exactly.
5 of them knobs or whatever.
Same thing with building cigar box guitars. If you've got I mean, the smallest piece I work with is a 1/4-inch dowel that's about maybe 1/8 of an inch thick for fret markers. If I can get a fret marker out of something, I'll do it.
So. Yeah, it's I'm a hoarder. I'll admit, I have all kinds of problems. I'm a hoarder. I'm got Amazon issues.
That's it,
Dave. It's a good thing I live alone. That's all I can
say. It's time for the home.
Yeah. Russ knows. When he came and stayed up here, what did I have in that extra bedroom where you stayed, Russ?
All kinds of
I had some nice mahogany, some nice cherry, big old 4/4 or whatever it is in there.
Yeah, at the foot of my bed was a wood stack. Yeah, I'm serious. It was a wood, and I told him, by the way, I said, you better keep an eye on when you watch me load my truck up to leave, because
I had to check his truck before he left.
Some of that stuff might be on board.
But what's funny is I've had those pieces in there. I bet I've had them in there 5 years.
Well, they got to be properly aged.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm waiting to acclimate to the temperature.
Well, you can. Hey, they're better than kiln dried, because they've been in his AC for 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm guilty as charged when it comes to keeping scraps that most people would throw away and stuff like that. So, all right, guys, we're down at an hour and a half. I guess we're going to sign off. We're done with the questions, right, Mark?
Yes, sir. We're done.
Okay. I appreciate everybody. I see we just lost a couple of viewers just like that as soon as I started to get ready to leave. See, we got about 50-something viewers. I appreciate you guys hanging around. Appreciate you interacting with the questions and stuff like that. Appreciate my panel. Had an awesome panel night. Especially Peter, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I hope you'll come back.
You're welcome.
I want to do a spotlight on you and talk about some of your CNC adventures and stuff. So,
What time? I would like to know one thing. What time is it over there where you're at, Peter?
It's about 2:30 now, in the afternoon.
Morning?
No, in the afternoon.
Oh, in the afternoon. Oh, okay. Well, that's not bad then.
Yeah. See, he's so far around there that we're not keeping him up.
Yeah,
No,
you're in
so-
Australia, right?
No, I'm in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. Well, I was close.
You might as well have called
Not
the Gator
close enough.
fan a Bama fan. Oh,
Oh no, I just
oh.
it had nothing to do with that. Come on, give me a break. I knew he was over in that corner of that neck of the woods, so I was pretty close.
Yeah. Well, you know he's pretty far away because he kind of talks fast.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. and you don't. Neither one of you do. Okay.
We don't
Yeah, I'm probably the funniest talking one here. So
Mark's the only one that I know that comes on to somebody's show and promotes his own YouTube channel and web.
You better scroll back, son. I've talked a lot about
Here we go.
Rebecca DeGroot on yours tonight.
Here we go.
Oh man.
all right, guys, before we get out of here, we're going to sign off here. Appreciate y'all hanging around. Thanks everybody that tuned in and watched tonight. Like I said, if you're wanting the plans or anything, check on the website sometime tomorrow. And like I said, I'll probably redo these and throw them in there as well. So you can go cheap or you can go a little less cheap. So anyway, we'll see y'all later. Like I said, next week, we're going to be interrogating Tommy G, finding all about his X-Car upgrade parts kits. And can't wait to see that because I already had a little sneak peek and that thing is awesome. So
It is.
we're going to have Tommy on there. And then hopefully maybe the next week we can have Peter on if he's available. So, all right, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see y'all next week. Y'all take care.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
See ya.
Good night.
Good night.